Hey everyone, Selina here on this first episode of February 2021. Selina Thomas, SCV HR Guru. In observation of Black History Month, I had a wonderful interview with someone who exemplifies Black excellence in the business community, Jeff Forrest, the Vice President of Economic Development at COC, College of the Canyons. I was so excited to be able to talk to him about the recovery for businesses in 2021, what to look forward towards in terms of the boom in business, and of course, how those things connect to the resources that he is championing over at College of the Canyons. It was very in-depth, packed with a lot of details, and of course, some fun facts at the end. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. In the meantime, continue to stay safe. Hang in there. We'll see you next time.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you, Selina? I'm good. I'm good. How's everything going?
Very good. So thanks for taking the time. It's so nice to be able to hit the ground running this year with the business recovery. And you were the perfect guest in the perfect month. It is February 2nd, Black History Month. And we are already excited about the recovery of small businesses. But I wanted to chat with you about first what you're doing at COC, who you are, and what we can look forward to. So I'll let you start.
Sure. All right. Well, I'm the Vice President of Economic and Workforce Development at College of the Canyons, and I oversee a number of initiatives at the college that have the purpose of helping small businesses, as well as businesses of every size, to be able to thrive and to be more competitive. And the way we do that is we provide low-cost training solutions that align with the needs of the business for their employees. And we have a number of ways we do that. We have an initiative called Employee Training Institute that works with employers who cannot send their employees to the college. So the college goes to them. We actually conduct the training at the facility of the business. And in some cases, the courses are absolutely at no charge. And so that's one of our initiatives. Another is apprenticeship. For companies that have these real critical needs that require skills and training that is specialized, they can hire us to partner with them to develop an apprenticeship program. And so we have a number of companies that we work with on that initiative as well. And then we have another one that has been really great for the community. It provides training to individuals who have high functioning autism and prepares them for careers as CNC machinists. And what we've known is this, and this is something that research has known for years, is that students who have high functioning autism are extremely analytical and very detailed. And so being a machinist, being in manufacturing is great for them. And we have 100% placement rate of students who come to that program. So those are just some of the things that we do. We have a small business development center, which, like you, is working with companies on the Paycheck Protection Program. And so we're helping businesses recover, helping businesses endure what has become a very, very difficult and challenging time with this pandemic.
Wow, it's so exciting. There's so much to what you just said. And I want to definitely start to kind of part and parcel some of that, because I know it's going to be useful, especially the point that you said that some of those skills that are already attributes of that population translating and working not just for the participant, but for the company. That's really exciting. And I definitely want to share that information later, because as small businesses are getting back to recovery, and you know this, we've all had to be creative about how we're going to do that, what resources are available for that. And then, of course, recognizing in this community that it's really right here in our own backyard, and again, low cost or no cost, that's always appealing to everyone, especially in recovery. So I want to get to something that was just released today that you could probably lend some insight to, that our business owners should probably be paying attention to and taking advantage of. I know that there has been another round of relief that has just been extended today. I personally kind of shout out some of those details on my own messages this morning. But what do you know about that? Because I know that there's a window, and we want to make sure that if we're waiting in line, that we get in line ready with our documents, know when to get in line, and start to anticipate.
Yes, and so this second round of funding is really for those businesses that were not able to apply for funding in the first round. Also, it allows smaller businesses to make application for funding. It starts at about 50,000 and goes up to 2 million in terms of the type of loan or the amount of the loan that they're eligible to receive. In addition, what is special about this second round of funding is that it doesn't have as much paperwork and as many hoops to jump through as the initial PPP or Paycheck Protection Program funding had. But you are absolutely right, Selina, that companies need to really move on this ASAP. And the window, the window is just a few weeks, is all that you have of this. But the money is out there and the money is available. And so I strongly encourage companies, small companies that have been impacted negatively in the area of payroll as well as in their operations from COVID in terms of revenue. They really need to take advantage of this program and see if they may be eligible and in a position to, again, qualify for it, because this loan converts to a grant. That's the beauty of the PPP program.
Part.
Exactly. That's the good part, is that it comes to the business as a loan. But then if they're able to properly document how they expensed out that loan and show that they used the funds for the intended purpose, then the government will convert what is a loan to a grant, and they don't have to repay it.
And that is what we've all been waiting for, is some lifeline to recover. And I know, to your point, in terms of it being a little more streamlined, there's also more qualifying factors that were allowed in this round, that more different industries, independent contractors. So can you expand a little bit about that?
Yes, and so there are more businesses, more independent contractors and others who traditionally were shielded from being able to be eligible to apply, who can now apply. And so if your company was involved in, for example, landscaping or any of these other types of, again, maybe not well-known type of businesses, it's really a much wider net that has been cast for the types of businesses in terms of what you do for a living, in terms of the service you provide. So it's not just retail, it's not just restaurants. Certainly they're the real critical core in this, travel industry, the hospitality industry. All of those were hit very heavily and are still dealing with the difficulty of getting through this pandemic. But then you have what I call these auxiliary type of businesses, ancillary businesses that typically may or may not have been hit. We've got our salons and all of our other service providers that are able to take advantage of this program as well. And I think that they should do everything they can to do so. Great.
That's a great point. And I know that people have resources which we'll post to look where they fit in. But we've got another specifically for California, a smaller grant program that I just saw was opened up today, 8 a.m. It closes on February 2nd, and that's in addition to the PPP program. So you have the federal funding that's coming forward, but that you also have the California funding.
Yes, exactly. And what happens is this, that as the state looks at its own economic situation and as it gets intel on the businesses within various regions within the state, it's able to allocate funding. And this funding is what I call spot funding. It's not a part of a strategic initiative or plan that the governor has in place. He's simply responding to the crisis with the resources that he has at his disposal. And then what will happen is you just have to simply be tuned in through organizations and companies like 6 Degrees HR, HR
and
Consulting.
Programs like this, yes.
Exactly, the Small Business Development Center, the SCB Chamber and others, VIA and others. You have to really be connected and kind of have your ear on the pulse of what's going on in the government. And you may also want to subscribe to the LA Times online, which also publishes that information so that you can take advantage of that, because the window, it happens quickly and the window is always short.
And then we find out that people received it and then there's a disconnect and like, wait, what happened? How did I not know that? So part of why I'm featuring that, because we're right in the first quarter of focusing on recovery from 2020, that just residual. In fact, we're coming out of it, but we're still, have some light at the end of the tunnel. But I want to segue into how the Business Alliance, how COC and your department is recognizing Black History Month this month, and I'm excited about that, and what that will bring forward in terms of people's awareness about the contributions of African American businesses in our community and economics, and then of course their specialties lend to the larger, global support to our economy. So I want to talk about that. I know you've got an upcoming event that I look forward to participating in, but tell me about that.
Absolutely. We have over 8,000 businesses in the Santa Clarita Valley. And we also have many African American owned businesses, not just Latino and Asian owned, but also African American owned businesses that operate here as well. And we wanted to take this opportunity, especially given the kinds of dynamics that our country has been facing lately. We felt that it was a need to take a moment through our Business Alliance at College of the Canyons and work to recognize and celebrate those African American entrepreneurs who have chosen to live and do business in Santa Clarita. Now, Santa Clarita has a rich history in terms of working with African Americans, and we know that there was a community known as Val Verde that was founded many decades ago, primarily African Americans, in which they had their own businesses. It was just like any other mecca, such as Tulsa, Oklahoma, if you will, dentists, pharmacies, doctors and lawyers. Val Verde was a self-contained African-American economic mecca back in the 30s and 40s and 50s that existed, which is only 10 minutes away from Santa Clarita. And so there is a definite history
to know
there.
that.
Yes, and so that's been around for many, many, many years, and there are residents of Val Verde still who can talk to that. But we also wanted to talk about what entrepreneurs are doing today. And so we're featuring 3 entrepreneurs, including Selina Thomas of 6 Degrees HR Consulting. We're going to have Ernest Ross, who is an entrepreneur in waiting. He's about to open up a barbecue restaurant with soul food called It's Your Cue. I have already placed my order. And then there's Nye Thompson with Thompson Realty Advisors, who has been doing some great work in a very hot real estate market.
Yes.
And so we've got these 3 entrepreneurs. We're going to celebrate them. They're going to tell their stories. You all are going to tell your stories about what it means to do business in this community. And COC is happy to be able to host this event.
And that's great.
And by the way, it is on February 17th, Wednesday, February 17th at 8 a.m. And so we'll make sure that Selina has a flyer, and anyone who needs information can go to our website and get it. And we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll definitely make sure we connect all that. But I love the history that you shared, especially in Black History Month, of Val Verde. I don't think people knew about that. And even being a longtime resident, that was new information for me. So I love that. And I think the more we continue to celebrate, spotlight, and share, we'll all begin to appreciate it in a different way, for sure. I know as a business owner myself here for the past 6-7 years and a resident here, I've seen the evolution of the community. And it's wonderful that there's a resource that not just up and coming businesses can rely on, but businesses that were impacted by COVID that are rebuilding. So I want to talk a little bit about what's been happening, what's coming towards Santa Clarita economically, jobs, projects, because I know you have your pulse on that. And it's important for business owners that support other businesses to know that's coming. And then also it speaks to our economy and recovery. So what's the latest? What's happening? I've seen film. Yes. I've seen production start up again. I was excited to see that.
Absolutely. We're seeing so what we're seeing is this bifurcation, this dual recovery that's happening across the country, but it's happening in Santa Clarita Valley as well. And so I want to give an overview of the year first, and then I'll get into the specific industries that I see that are going to be impacted as we go through this year. So the first 6 to 8 months of 2021 are going to be a sequel to 2020. In terms of the lockdowns, in terms of the closures, in terms of the restricted access to businesses. And I'm speaking in particular, the hospitality and the restaurant industry. So they're going to have to hold on for about 4 or 5 more months before we can see some opening, some gradual access to those businesses. And so that's what we definitely see happening right now. Exactly. Sure. But then once that vaccine rollout really begins to take effect, you're going to see what I call the boom effect. And I've been talking with small businesses. I just did a podcast a few weeks ago saying, if you are a restaurant or in the hospitality business or in the service industry and you were doing great in 2020 in February or January, and you saw 2020 being a great year, and then COVID happened, you need to start preparing for the boom effect, which can happen between August, September, October, when all of that restrained funding from consumers, that restraint going out, all of that's going to change. And it's going to change very, very quickly when consumers realize they can go to Valencia, to the mall in Valencia and McBean, when they can go to the restaurant and eat inside, you're going to have the boom effect. How do we know that? Because we've already seen test cases of it already happening, such as the one this past weekend. If you went out to try to eat at a restaurant after Governor Newsom allowed for outside dining, you had to wait at least an hour. And so I was part of that. I can attest to that. I went to 3 different restaurants and I had to wait an hour at all 3 restaurants. Why? Because everybody came outside and they dined outside. It was cold, it was chilly, and no one cared.
I couldn't wait. Yes.
Exactly. Right. And think about that, Selina. If we were able to go to restaurants and we had 1 hour wait times, think about this, in 50-degree weather. What's going to happen when the temperature is 75 degrees and the skies are blue and all the restaurants are opening and you can go to the bar, you can order a drink, you can do all of these things? What do you think is going to happen if we already had a boom from a weekend of just dining in the cold? Right. Imagine what's going to happen when we can dine and the weather is perfect. It's going to be crazy. And I'm saying,
I think the boom terminology is right. I think that's the perfect connotation for it. And I'm excited. I certainly will be a part of it. And I'm glad that you're emphasizing for those that are in the industry to brace themselves in terms of not just be ready, but hang on until it comes, because you need to see that as the light at the end of the tunnel. That's where in this program we get to provide hope and opportunity and some foresight. So I love that you said that.
Yes, there's 2 things that I would recommend small businesses be focused on for the boom effect. And they should be doing those plans now. They should be planning their inventory and they should be planning their staffing.
Absolutely. Right up my alley. Be prepared with just the manpower that it's going to take to support that. Because you hate to have the boom and not be ready.
That's exactly right.
Right. I mean, we've done all the logistical changes. I've been part of that for a lot of my companies, the La Cocina, Thelma's, with the outdoor, with the tents, and that's just in these circumstances. But the manpower, I would imagine, is going to be, so that's a great point. And I think just being anticipating of just the volume of needs to support your employees, having more staff, having those applications ready, having someone ready to process them, and that's where we get to have some synergy between what your department does and what 6 Degrees does, because there's going to be that support necessary.
Yes, these companies need to start hiring and reaching out to potential candidates in April, May, and June, at the latest, because when the boom happens, you won't have people. They will all be hired. You won't have inventory. It will all be purchased. You need to be setting up with your vendors now, talking about what you're going to need to buy and purchase that was selling, that was hot in 2019. You need to have those negotiations and be ready to purchase that inventory, and then start putting out fillers about hiring some really good people while you're in a position to do so. The boom is coming.
That's great to know. And I'm sure COC is going to be right in the front of having those job fairs. And so that's great to know. And I'll be definitely posting that and keeping my eye on that. So I definitely want to get into a little bit about what I've seen around town, separate from the boom in that industry. Production has shot up everywhere. Talk about that. I've seen, the production trucks, and that's always a good sign to me, because obviously they've taken the time to do this safely, to do it in a manner that, has the internal processes to make sure people are testing and when they can, they've reduced even the capacity. But we've got a big boom in that area. What's coming to Santa Clarita in terms of that?
Yeah, so first of all, let's explain why there's a boom. There's a boom because of streaming. Streaming is hot, and it's only going to get hotter. And because of that, there's been a need for content and a need for production. Content and production is driving what is happening in Santa Clarita right now. Studios are popping up all over the place. And that is because they're developing projects that are wanted by Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime and CBS and HBO Max. All of these companies, Disney Plus, all of these streaming companies are starving. They are starving for content and production, and they are doing everything they can. They're pouring it all in right now in terms of financial resources to make that happen. And so those companies, those production and film studios, they're seeing their best days during the pandemic because everybody's at home doing what? Streaming television. And that's
I can attest to that as well. I've
Yes.
done some binge watching on Netflix like I've never done before because we didn't have a
Yes.
choice. But I think to your point too, I think people will continue to do that, you know, as we kind of, you know, re-emerge. But I think there is always going to be a market for it in anticipation for, you know, if something occurs like this again, or, you know, people have just developed a way to stay at home. And so they're inevitably doing both, the working and marathon watching at the same time. So it's such a good point. I love how you kind of reverse osmosis the whole process, that the end result is because on the backside, you've got this need that wasn't there a year and a half ago. People weren't, I mean, I think I barely used my Netflix account in 2018, but now, you know, I've got all these extra options to stream this and, you know, so people, I can see the industry taking advantage of that. So that's good to know as well.
Yes.
So as we are we're in the very beginning of Black History Month, and we've had obviously, you know, a very tumultuous 2020, but I think the positivity coming into 2021 is spreading. And I know that we are spotlighting this month specifically. Have you seen any trends in any other industries? Have you seen a rise in requests for business licenses in specific industries? I know hair salons have not come back fully, and a lot of people are working underground. And I've got some vendors that are I saw a traveling barber the other day on my street. He probably hit 5 houses, but there's definitely a shift in how people are operating.
That's exactly right. And so I just want to hit on that point you just made. There has been a definite trend, an increase, as well as an increase in entrepreneurs, but how they're doing their business is what is different. And so we're seeing less brick and mortar and more mobility, more customization of how they deliver their products and services. And so we're seeing an increase in companies or individuals wanting to go into business and deliver services, and you name it. As you said, from barber to retail to restaurant, they're all still out there wanting to start businesses. And I think that's one of the things that is, and sorry about that noise there.
No worries.
But one of the things that is happening is this, that there's a lot of entrepreneurial energy in the pandemic of every type of business. And so there's not just one type of business, there's all kinds of businesses that are applying for licenses and wanting to launch. And that we found to be very fascinating.
And, you know, I think to your point, people shuttered, got really creative, and they maybe put into motion the things that they always thought about, because now you're no longer working at that corporate building, and the dreams that they maybe set aside or the ideas that weren't quite refined are now becoming their business and their means. And that was because we all had to become creative about still making sure that revenue happened for our own homes. And so that has spawned into a new generation and a new type of entrepreneur. I think like we have the baby boom and that business boom, we're going to have an entrepreneur boom.
And let's give them a name.
2020.
Let's you and me give them a name. We're going to call them the post-COVID entrepreneur.
There you go. I think
you heard it from Selina Thomas and Jeff Forrest, the post-COVID entrepreneur. That's what we're going to.
And we will look for that.
And they will be different. They will be different from the pre-COVID entrepreneur. They'll be completely different. They'll watch their money more. They'll watch the amount of hours that they give to their staff more. They will manage their business operationally and administratively and focus on it more than those entrepreneurs prior to the pandemic,
Sure.
because they realize that there is risk there that's been brought on by the pandemic, and they don't want to make any mistakes, and they
Sure.
want to be in a position to have money left aside and be able to have those savings in place. So the post-COVID entrepreneur is coming. They're going to be a lot more savvy and a lot
Yes.
more financially literate in how they run their business.
I love that. And I think it really does provide not just people that didn't have that kind of entrepreneurial energy or attitude, and inspiration, and definitely provide, kind of a blueprint for what things are going to be like in the future. Because I think the one main thing I've learned out of this is the things that you never would have thought to anticipate, you now have to anticipate. That means anticipate anything could happen.
Right.
And we don't even know and couldn't have imagined what this looked like, but here we are, and we got through it and are getting through it. So I think ultimately I've seen also younger people make those versus going straight to a 4-year and they've had to forego because there's been a loss of scholarships, there's a loss of opportunities to segue that athleticism into a scholarship because sports got shut down. So they had to think about, reinventing themselves as athletes and as people that would ultimately leave a sport and become business minded, but they became business minded right away. I've seen really creative things with keeping athletes safe with the face masks and all of the. I saw a gentleman wand a bat this weekend, and it kind of disinfected the bats for, and it was a prototype, and that was the post-COVID entrepreneur. And so, all of those things, because even if this goes away and it lives, it won't really leave us. The potential from what we know now is always going to be there. It's just the new one. So I think we won't have a choice.
Yeah, I think that we should be paying more attention to the Reddit movement than we are right now. That is not a flash in the pan. That is a long-term shift in the financial markets that is going to be with us for generations. We're not looking at, a bunch of guys got together on Reddit and they bought this stock and that stock and this stock. What they've learned is they've discovered Wall Street. So they have, and we're going to see that in all the industry sectors. They're discovering that they can play at the same level as those who have been in the game for years. And again, the financial markets is one sector. They're going to come into all the sectors, and we're going to see
the tip of the iceberg. You're right.
Yes.
Well, the gamers for GameStop changed the game. I mean, we've all been watching that in the last week and a half with astonishment, but I think ultimately, to your point, they have made their mark, that it's not just kind of a one-hit wonder situation. And I know hedge funds and Wall Street is really paying attention, and they're probably going to have to get really collaborative with them at this point because they're not going anywhere. There's
a great analogy, and it involves your daughter. You had shared a video with me when she was playing softball, and I watched that video over and over, and I got back with you and I said, she did not wait for the second pitch. She hit a triple on the first pitch. As soon as that ball came across the plate, it was gone. And that really typifies the character of that generation. They don't want to pay their dues. They're ready now. Robinhood, Reddit, they feed into that.
Such a good analogy. Yeah.
They don't. Their goal is to not be their parents. That's their goal.
Well, you hear about the billionaires are younger and younger.
Yes.
The billionaires that and we just saw on the news today a billionaire that's going into space. He's only 36 years old.
Yes. Amazing.
So we understand that they are, because they're born into kind of expedient information and they have to adjust quickly. I think I've heard many times from other parents and professionals that I couldn't have been in this crisis in my generation when I was in high school. It would have, but they made an adjustment from the Zooming, even in their athletics, and how they've continued to do that safely. But it speaks to their ability to adapt quickly.
That's right. Look what we've done to them. We've taken away their graduation. We took away their proms. We took away their weddings. Yes, we took away all these milestones, and they're saying, you know what? We'll take it from here.
Skip it. We got it. And we're going to go straight to the top versus having
That's
to
right.
kind of do this ascension into greatness. They're like, we're going to just hit the ground running. And I love that point. And what will they look like in 5 years? Right. In my mind,
You're right.
I can't imagine, because I'm often saying, to your point with my own daughters, you're way ahead of me at that age and stage. And so it's almost scary to see the potential that's been released from what they've been subjected to. And that's they've adapted and adjusted. So I'm really excited about it. And it will only serve all of us that they move quick, and,
Exactly.
and,
We
and,
want
and
to
that
push
we
them.
can benefit from that. Sure.
Exactly. Yeah,
And
I
I know
was the
you
guy.
guys are keeping up with that at COC. That's
Most
part of
definitely.
it.
We're working through our FBLA, our Future Business Leaders of America, our Business Alliance, and everything else. We're pushing the envelope on these trends, wanting to make sure that, first of all, our businesses who attend our alliance meetings know about these things that are happening. And then we feature others who are going to be involved. In fact, we're going to be featuring Selina Thomas in a few months, who is going to talk about how to build your brand in a
Absolutely.
pandemic. I mean, I follow you on Twitter, and I watch the various videos that you make in terms of that, and you do it the way it needs to be done in a pandemic. And so we're looking forward to have you host
Sure.
that event for us in a few months as well, because that's a very critical thing. It's all about brand. It
And
really is.
evolution of that brand, and
Yes.
meeting the times. I know that the one thing I have learned is that you have to meet the moment. And thankfully, the groundwork that I had put into 6 degrees in advance of the pandemic prepared me for making the adjustment. But it was really interesting that at one point, my daughter, who's a student at COC, and herself started a business, a design business. She started as a model before pandemic. Now she's on the design side and shipping every day, because she has now developed a brand that out of the pandemic, and ships every day and has an audience. And so just being able to just see how that just evolved for her, and went from modeling and being in the front to now the designer and seller of her own. And so she'll benefit from all of this, and they'll all find their niche. And it's just exciting to see the growth for everyone. So I want to get a little bit into what's coming in. I know that you talked about the boom, and then what are the areas that have been hit that you project may not recover, but should start to consider transitioning their services and evolving, because we can celebrate those that have figured that out, but we don't ever want to leave anyone behind. We definitely want to promote the fact that they're capable of this recovery.
Yes. And so let's talk about the businesses that have been severely hit, the ones that have been hit the hardest. That is the travel industry. No one has been hit harder than the travel industry. And then we have the restaurant industry. Next, we have the hospitality industry. Then we have the retail industry. And I want to bring this out because it's very important. The retail industry has an asterisk by it, because it was not just hit hard by the pandemic, it was hit harder by online sales. And so it suffered
Sure.
a double whammy. So those are the four big industries that have
So the
been hit.
Amazon that just kind of
Exactly.
sucked.
Exactly. And so they took the hit while the others took the bump, and their businesses increased
Sure.
by leaps and bounds like never before during the pandemic. So let's talk
Mhm.
about those industries and whether or not they're going to recover, and if it's going to be difficult, what they need to be doing now. So for the travel industry, they're going to get the boom. However, that boom could be short-lived if it is not met with a level of excellence and customer service that will allow them to build up a brand that will attract customers. So you're going to see what I call a boom, in which customers are going to do a lot of traveling, especially on the cruise lines. But if the experience is not what they're looking for, or it isn't what they really wanted, that boom could be over. And so they
So they're
need
going
to
to
be
be
careful.
selective, because they
Absolutely.
know that they can be. There's options.
That's right. For the
Sure.
hospitality industry, that one has a little bit of a question mark behind it, because we're going to see, and this is why, much of the travel industry benefited from conferences,
Yes.
and not just
I'm familiar
vacations,
with those.
but conferences. And so that
Sure.
one is going to get a semi burst. It's going to get the vacation tourist boom, but it really made its money off of conferences that rented not just rooms and blocks of rooms,
Sure.
They rented the ballroom. They rented
Right.
they did the catering. They did everything. And it's
And
those
now everyone's
conferences.
Zooming.
Exactly. And so the conferences are going to make a slow comeback because people are going to say, wait a minute, I've done pretty good without all this travel. And think
Mm-hmm.
about the companies who are saying, wait a minute, we did pretty good and we saved $500,000 in travel. Why are we traveling now? That is going to really impact hospitality if businesses, not people, they're going to go to the hotels and
Sure.
do hospitality. But when the businesses pull back and
Sure.
re-examine if they need travel the way they did prior to the pandemic, that can affect hospitality. And
That's
so
good to know.
they need to find a way to make an appeal to these
Draw them
entities that
back
do
in.
conferences. They're going to have to redesign the conference experience.
And
That's
I
what they need
think
to do.
when you speak to that, because this always affects me later, is when I'm speaking on behalf of my clients. If they do have that conference, what are your safety protocols? How are you providing a safe environment? What are your procedures so that we know in advance that you've created an environment that is, mitigating exposure and risk? Are you going to be now? Let's talk about this trend, and I really anticipate this coming. The need for people to prove that they've been vaccinated in some situations, because
Yes.
you have venues that will not let you in. And I just saw how Rams has a barcode. When they do bring concerts back, you'll actually have to have a barcode, either that shot record or a bracelet, and you'll zap that barcode, and it will basically clear you for the COVID vaccine. So
Yes.
I'm watching that trend, speaking to venues and people getting back out. I'm sure that is going to be part of that appeal and being able to draw people back in. We're safe. Anyone that comes has to be, vaccinated or have had some sort of proof of their health.
There's a company right here in Valencia called Illume, and I hope I'm pronouncing it correct, ELLUME. And they've just been approved for their immediate fast results home-based COVID-19 test. And I just saw
Wow,
it on national news, but it's a Valencia company.
that's
And
fantastic.
yes, ELLUME is the company, and they developed a home test for COVID. But think about this, Selena, as a use. Suppose the Illume home test for COVID is at the restaurant and it delivers a
Immediate.
result in 10 minutes. Think about it. That's a 10
While
minute
you're
wait.
waiting,
While
you're
you're
waiting.
waiting, we're
We
going to
waited
test
an
you here.
hour in the rain this weekend. We will wait to make sure we're safe. That's such a good point.
And the Valencia Mall, so now I want to come back to the retail side. Suppose retail gave free COVID test as you shop.
Wow,
Free, and you get 10-minute results. Guess who's going to
I
go
would
to the
do that.
retail? Everyone. And they're going to go a lot because as soon as they get a sniffle, they're going to go over to the
Yeah,
mall.
I'm going to the
Imagine
mall.
having a 10-minute test and it's absolutely free, paid for by the mall, the operator of the mall. You can get a free test. Well, while you're waiting, why don't you do some shopping? Come back
So
and
I
get
would
your results.
imagine venues would do the same in terms of rapid to enter a venue. So then
Yes.
that removes the need to vaccine, but at least you have a rapid result and you know this person is negative. And
When you
and, and
register
that
for the
technology was
conference,
developed here. That's exciting.
you'll be given an appointment to get your free COVID test
Wow.
because we care about
And
you. The same thing for travel as well. On the cruise ship, you can get your free COVID test. 10
and
minute
that's what they're
result.
doing on productions. That's how so the model came from the bubble with the NBA when they did it, and
Yes.
they successfully had the bubble. And but I mean, obviously, a more expansive way, because then we have now layers to this crisis. We have
Yes.
the vaccine, we have a rapid test, we have contact tracing, and
Yes.
that's a big part of why 6 Degrees has kind of evolved in this crisis, because no employer is going to be able to exist without having these mechanisms in place, and that's what's exciting about the already existing infrastructure matched with the current needs that are going to be here for long term.
The
That's
number one
exciting.
product, the number one product that's going to sell as we leave this pandemic and can really begin to see some degree of normalcy, the number one product in America will be safety.
Yes, and that's going to be your number one pitch then. If that's
That's your
how
brand,
you're
it's your
going to get
pitch.
people back.
Exactly right. And we need an HR, 6 Degrees HR consulting to say, okay, so you're safe. But who cares if you don't know how to properly pitch your safety?
Absolutely. And
And that's why
and for mine, it's about making sure employees are safe. And so the employers
exactly,
are going to need this as part of just, their appeal to hire, because we talked about the hiring boom that people are going to need to think about when the boom comes. You're going to be a much more desirable employer if you could speak to your safety. We rapid test, we assure that everyone that works for us, has that available to them. And so these are all things that are exciting coming my direction, especially for companies that are kind of coming back. They can add that as a chip in their cards. I
if I
really
was
am
a
so glad
hotel or
about that.
restaurant owner or manager, I would say on television as part of marketing, and I'm not a marketer, I'm just a strategy guy, but I would say that they should be telling the customer all of our employees are vaccinated and or tested daily, or are they are tested daily.
Right.
That
They're
way,
either vaccinated or tested daily, either or.
exactly,
But you have a level of safety now that eliminates or accentuates you above your competition. Because what
exactly,
if your competitor isn't speaking to that? I think you're right. It's not just about having excellence when people return, it's about having that excellence and safety. Because we only have to look at the daily numbers to see, that this has been catastrophic for people, especially in certain populations. And so let's talk a little bit about if there, and a lot of people have asked me this when they knew I was talking to you. Does it look like COC? I know Magic Mountain has kind of an area for the vaccine. Does it look like? And I went to COC for my test, and I went through the little garage. But is there any ideas about that being a location for vaccinations?
right now there has been no indication that COC would be a
Mhm.
site for vaccinations, and so it could be, but certainly there's nothing definitive that I could add to that right now.
But Magic Mountain's across the street, so you
That's
just
right.
have to
Yeah,
go a
so
block.
just go under
Keep going.
Highway 5, and you'll be you
Sure,
can get the
you'll get
vaccination.
right there. And
Yes.
so for your particular department, and what does it look like to, because I have a student at COC and she's still online. What are the projections to return to campus?
That's a great question, and it's one that's based on, and I'm no one's going to like the answer to this question, but it depends. College of the
Mm,
Canyons, like the other 114 or 15 community colleges in the state of California, we receive our directives from the state of California, and so they will tell us
sure.
when we can open. And then here in Los Angeles, where CLC is based, we also get our directives from LA County. And so
Right.
that will give us that direction. And right now, there's nothing that's indicating that we will be open by summer, but there's a possibility of
Mm.
fall. But next month or in April, we could be open in summer. So it really depends on
For
how
summer
things
session.
develop.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
And
there may
so
be a
that's
summer
obviously
session.
shifted everything in terms of athletics
That's
on
right.
campus and any of the other extra things that you guys. I know you have a great culinary, because I know there's a lot of people that really count on that culinary before they go to the next level. So all that's
Yes.
still on hold, but at least we've had so much great information today that you've shared. I'm going to get to this because I do this with all of my guests, but you've already shared some really good information about Valverde, and I consider that a really unique fact and fun fact. But I definitely want to, in honor of Black History Month, I have a fun fact of myself that ties to Black History Month and that most people probably wouldn't know. So, what I do towards the end of our show is I share a fun fact so that people kind of get to know me a little more, but then also get to know my guest a little bit more. And so, I don't know if you thought about it, but I'll share mine first.
Okay.
So, in honor of Black History Month, and I'll share this when the episode airs. A lot of people don't know this, but I used to ride professionally. I was a bell racer for the Black Rodeo for Bill Pickett.
Oh, wow.
And so
Amazing.
later, my daughter became an equestrian, and she was the only one that took up horseback riding, but she was also a bell racer. So I am a retired bell racer in the Black Rodeo. So that's my fun fact for Black History Month.
Okay. So here's my fun fact for Black History Month. Um,
Okay.
many years ago. I won't tell you what decade, but think Saturday Night Fever when I was in high school.
Okay.
As an African American, instead of playing basketball, I was on the swim team. And so I was one of 3 African Americans while everybody was going out for basketball and getting cut from the team because they'd have over 100 people trying to play basketball. And I was decent. I was a pretty good basketball player. I actually joined the swim team and was a part of making history as an African American on the swim team way back in the days that John Travolta and was doing Saturday Night Live in the beaches.
I like that. And that's really good for you. I mean, swimming is
it was great. I had no
sport.
regrets. You know, the coach of the basketball team would ask me, "Are you going out for basketball?" I said, "No, I'm swimming." And he'd look at me like I was crazy, but I was an African American on the swim team.
Good for you. I like that history. It's a great fun fact and a great close. It's been so informative today. I so appreciate you taking the time. I look forward to participating in the Business Alliance later this month and talking to the other entrepreneurs and commiserating about not just what it's been like to do business here and grow a business here, but to be embraced. And that's been so important and been a part of my brand, and why I continue to put myself out there is because you do, as you said earlier, you do have to have your ear to the ground and be in the ready. And that means being connected. And that's the premise of 6 Degrees. We're all connected. And so I so appreciate you, Jeff Forrest, and Happy New Year. Soon enough, we'll get together and be able to get in that line and maybe wait on some wine, but get a rapid test at the same time. I mean, that's right. All good things.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the great work you do, Selina. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Definitely. You have a good day and you stay safe.
You too. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.